It'll be something special that people will remember for a lifetime for sure.
From live music to a night at the museum, if you're still trying to figure out how to ring in 2020, don't worry, we've got you covered. There are plenty of options out there, from a midnight jog to the Royal Ontario Museum like you've never experienced it before. There are lots of things to enjoy to welcome the new decade tomorrow night. Our Greg Ross joins us now live from Nathan Phillips Square. And Greg, they're expecting a huge crowd there where you're at.
Absolutely. Kind of the calm before the storm, though, right now. Just a few hundred people here right now. But by this time tomorrow night, this square is going to be packed. You can see behind me the stage is set over there where they're planning this big, massive show. This is one of the many parties happening around the city tomorrow night as people say goodbye to the 2010s and welcome in the 2020s.
Putting the finishing touches on the setup at City Hall for tomorrow's New Year's celebration. It'll be the biggest in the city.
Typically, we might see maybe 40,000, 50,000, depending on what the weather is.
A night of live performances, skating, and of course, a countdown to midnight complete with a massive fireworks display.
It'll just be a celebration of going into another decade.
Are you ready? Do it right.
Singer Zaki Ibrahim is the headliner for tomorrow night's show. She'll have a special New Year's hairdo, and she's hoping the rain is gone by the time she takes to the stage.
The hair is the biggest worry. No, I'm just joking. But no, it's going to be great. Rain or shine.
We're starting right over here. You can't see anything now, but there's going to be tents in the start line.
For the 9th straight year, Peter Donato is hosting the Midnight Run on New Year's Eve.
We call it the last race of the year, or the first race of 2020, how you want to look at it.
It's a 5K run that starts at the stroke of midnight. Donato was expecting about 200 runners, and he admits some might have a little something extra in their Gatorade.
We don't endorse any public drinking, but there are those who show up and they've already been to another party.
Do the dinosaur bones look any different after a few drinks?
Some people say they do.
If you're looking for something a little more formal and something a little less outdoors, the ROM is hosting a New Year's party of their own.
Have to be quiet at the museum on New Year.
No, those rules are not applicable on New Year's Eve. So yes, you can bring your party vibe and have fun with your friends.
Restaurants will be packed tomorrow night. Nightclubs will be packed tomorrow night. If you don't already have a reservation, you're probably out of luck. And something else people are going to be doing to ring in the new year tomorrow, Shannon, is taking in a little basketball action. The Toronto Raptors will play their final game of what was an incredible 2019 tomorrow night as they host the Cleveland Cavaliers at Scotiabank Arena. Shannon?
So much to do. Thanks, Greg. To see what's open and closed on the last day of 2019, you can head to our website. That's at cbc.ca/Toronto. Well, it started out so stormy and nasty this morning, but by the middle of the day, people said it felt like spring. Nick Cirkovich is here for our first look at the forecast.
And you know what, Shannon? It's going to change again for the end of the year. Mother Nature just can't seem to lock it down with the weather. I don't know how to put it. We had warm temperatures today up to 10 degrees. Then tomorrow, we're actually looking at more winter-like conditions, and that is how we're going to end 2019. So let's talk about your New Year's forecast. Starting with the headlines. Temperatures are falling, as I mentioned. Snow, believe it or not, given today to end off 2019. But another warm-up is on the way soon as we start off 2020. Here's what we had today, 10 degrees in the GTA. Right now we're sitting at 5 degrees, but temperatures are falling through the overnight. So what's going on? Well, we had showers across the city. Ice to the east of us, but you take a broader look at this system, and on the back side of it, we've got snow that's going to drive down along with colder temperatures as well. So right now, the risk for a few spotty showers through the evening hours tonight, switching over to flurries through the overnight, and then we're looking at one band that's going to slide through around 2 to 5 a.m., and then widespread light snowfall through the day tomorrow. This takes us into 6 p.m. tomorrow and right up to the midnight hour. A few flurries in the forecast as we head through tomorrow. There's a look at the next 24 hours, about 2 to 5 centimeters of snow in the forecast. 1 is a high. We'll have your full details coming up in just a bit.
Critical when planning the outfit for tomorrow. Thank you so much, Nick.
I'm Talia Ricci, and coming up, more tenants have been granted access to their units on Gosford Boulevard, but some say they don't want to move back in yet.
It's dusty and everywhere. The floors are not fixed. My unit is not really that clean yet.
We got inside the building to see what it looks like and what some of the residents who moved back in are dealing with.
To the U.S., where the man accused of storming a rabbi's home and stabbing 5 people during a Hanukkah celebration faces new charges tonight. He's already pleaded not guilty to 5 counts of attempted murder. Jacqueline Hansen has the latest.
The lawyer for the alleged attacker defended his client today. He said that Grafton Thomas has a long history of mental illness, but no history of anti-Semitism.
We were able this morning to go to the home, Reverend Page and I, and review scores of papers which frankly show the ramblings of a disturbed individual, but there is no suggestion in any of those ramblings and pages of writing of an anti-Semitic motive.
But in a filing of federal hate crime charges against Thomas today, officials allege otherwise. The filing says it appears that several pages in the journals express anti-Semitic sentiments, and that Thomas's phone showed online searches for Hitler and Jewish temples near me. Jewish community members are shaken. The knife attack was just the latest of more than a dozen attacks on Jewish people in that area in the past month.
As a community, as a county, we are fighting back, regardless of what the motivations are, regardless of what the investigations reveal. The fact of the matter is we cannot sit around and do nothing.
The county where the latest attack happened announced that it's partnering with the private sector for help with security.
And we decided to step up and provide immediately, as of yesterday afternoon, an armed security patrol comprised of off-duty or retired FBI agents, state police, and NYPD detectives who are highly conditioned and highly trained to help to minimize a reoccurrence of this horrible event.
New York City's mayor has also promised an increased police presence as well as other safety initiatives.
We're going to have patrols of community folks who go out working with the NYPD from a variety of ethnic backgrounds to make sure, particularly if young people are in any way, shape, or form thinking of getting involved in hate crimes and anything negative, that there's intervention.
Some other New York municipal and state politicians are calling for even more to be done. In an open letter, several wrote, "It is no longer safe to be identifiably Orthodox in the state of New York. We cannot shop, walk down a street, send our children to school, or even worship in peace." They say they've been sounding the alarm on this for a long time, and now they're asking the governor to declare this a state of emergency. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Washington.
Here at home, Toronto's Jewish community is tightening security. This latest attack in New York, some say, is a reminder of the very real threat facing Jews. Our Nick Boisvert has more.
The final candle is lit, and another Hanukkah comes to an end tonight. But in 2019, it wasn't the typical celebration.
On Saturday evening, we were all lighting the 7th candle, and all of us could imagine ourselves in that kind of situation, tragically.
The world's eyes turned to New York State this weekend, where 5 people were stabbed during a Hanukkah gathering at the home of their rabbi. Today, the town of Monsey announced some new security measures to protect its growing Jewish population. Here in Toronto, there are no armed guards making the rounds, but Jewish organizations are tightening security. The UJA Federation has increased its security budget by millions of dollars over the last few years, including here at its new complex in North York. The property will soon include a new rec and family center, all protected by a patrolled entrance with extra security inside.
That investment in security is coupled with a tremendous resolve and empowerment to say we're not going to cower, rather we're going to have great pride.
According to B'nai B'rith, anti-Semitism in Canada has increased for the last 3 years.
We've been advocating to various levels of government to augment the resources available, more hate crime units, more specialized community liaison units, more critical infrastructure units.
The Jewish community says taking those steps will eventually benefit all minority groups.
Because what starts with the Jews doesn't end with the Jews. This is not a Jewish problem, this is a societal problem.
In other news tonight, a man was hit and killed on the 401 early this morning. He was struck by a transport truck in the eastbound express lanes at Allen Road. The driver of the truck remained on scene. Police are looking into why the man was walking on the highway and whether he had any connection to a vehicle that was found stopped nearby on the shoulder. The OPP issuing this reminder tonight: if your car breaks down on the highway, stay inside the vehicle and call for help. More tenants were told they could move back into their units on Gosford Boulevard today. You'll remember that huge fire that tore through the North York apartment building back in November. One man was killed and 700 were forced from their homes. Talia Ritchie joins us from there live now. So Talia, the city is saying, you know, these units are safe, but the tenants you talked to don't feel the same.
Well, Shannon, the city said that their staff inspected the 28 units that people were allowed to move back into just earlier today. And now there's a total of 73 units that are no longer deemed to be unsafe. But some of the tenants we spoke with said even though they got that go-ahead to move back in, they're choosing not to.
It's clear being inside 235 Gosford Boulevard that the building is still very much under construction.
There's a lot of molds everywhere. We have to clean it ourselves.
Jeffrey Villahorta is choosing to continue paying for a hotel on his own dime because he doesn't think the work here is done. He was invited to move back into his unit a few days ago.
The floor there is so bad. My ceiling in my bedroom is almost like you can see the water.
Villahorta was part of this group Saturday calling on the city and property management to take further steps to ensure the building is safe. On November 15th, a fire tore through their 15-story apartment, displacing hundreds and leaving one person dead. Their lawyer wants tenants to have access to the reports done by the city.
The real worry I have is that adequate air testing and surface sampling has not been done. It needs to be thoroughly scrubbed professionally, industrially, and we need to be confident that it's safe.
But the city says it has done its part. In a statement, it said in addition to numerous inspections of the site during the last month, Toronto building staff have worked closely with other agencies, including Toronto Fire and the Electrical Safety Authority, to assess the building's condition to ensure it's safe before reoccupancy is permitted.
Building management also said they went above and beyond the requirements to have air quality testing done on the building, including areas that weren't affected by the fire.
I can't go to work.
But Villahorta says he would rather be displaced longer and wait until everything is completed.
Especially my kids, like crawling around, laying down the floor and all those things, running around the house. I want them to fix everything first before we can move in.
And for those who have no idea when they'll have their homes back, these days are stressful for them too.
It just breaks my heart to go there and see what happened inside of there. It's like it's broken. Everything is just broken from my heart because it's where I rented and call home.
I've been nervous constantly. I can't sleep at night. I'm worried about other people's families.
The city says in total there are 12 units that do require significant repairs, and those units will be under construction for several months. The property management company said they will be alerting tenants through their Facebook page and over the phone and email once they're able to re-enter their units. Shannon?
So far from over yet for some of those tenants. Thanks, Talia. Well, it's something anyone trying to find a rental in the GTA knows well. The market is tight and rents just keep going up. But there's another challenge many tenants are facing after they move in. They're called renovictions. David Common has more from renters and experts who are calling it a crisis.
Which apartment was yours?
The very top one.
Right up here?
Yes, the third floor.
When the eviction notice first appeared, Yvonne Wegmar didn't believe it.
It's already getting, I guess, erased for me.
In an already tight housing market, the new owners of his building had other plans. They say they approached renovations with respect for tenants and the law in mind. But Yvonne was still forced out.
Oh, new framing. They're renovating.
Yep.
Stop renovation at 245!
Sometimes the renovations are so minor that tenants protest why they should even be forced out. That happened earlier this year here, where tenants say little work was done after they were evicted, only to see new tenants pay substantially more, often when foreign investors buy up rental real estate. Toronto City Councillor Paula Fletcher says renoviction rates are way up.
Someone who doesn't live in Toronto buys a building and then starts renovating tenants, saying that they need to leave, they're going to demolish the building, they're going to do something, and then affordable units go from pretty affordable to triple that amount.
Why do you think this is happening?
Well, apparently a rental is the next big investment.
And that's happening across Canada's big cities, including Montreal.
So this is one of the buildings?
Yeah, this is one of the buildings.
Okay, how many people from here then are facing a renoviction or have already been renovicted?
Okay, there are about, in January this year, about 20 tenants received.
20?
Yeah, 20 on the 36 tenants received a letter asking to end the lease, and a lot of harassment started from there.
Housing advocate Martin Blanchard is inundated with reports of renovictions.
How many calls are you getting about this?
We used to get, I don't know, 50 to 100 per year. Now we get many hundreds every year. It's a crisis.
How easy is it to fight?
It's very hard.
These kinds of evictions deserve special scrutiny about whether the applications are being brought in good faith.
Lawyer Kenneth Hale can barely keep up with the renovictions brought before him. He's calling for action in Ontario to ensure owners prove that proposed renovations are so substantial eviction is really the only answer.
They should take away the economic incentive to evict people, and that would be by putting restrictions on the amount of rent increase that can happen in between tenants. Because right now it's unlimited, and we just see it as an opportunity for landlords to rent gouge, and that shouldn't be allowed.
These are your neighbors?
Yeah, this was my cousin's hangout spot.
Yvonne has moved back in with his mother, unable to afford rent and stay in the same area. He's coming to terms with the loss of his home.
But I've been pretty depressed since this happened. I honestly haven't even unpacked my stuff. Like, I packed it up quickly to get the hell out, but I haven't unpacked stuff. I don't kind of want to look at it, or I'm still absorbing this.
Now he helps others fight, helps the many he knows facing renoviction to use the law and push back. It's not an easy battle. David Common, CBC News, Toronto.
I graduated med school in 2009, so a decade ago now. The demographics of the residency from when I started residency to when I came back from research now has changed completely. I was almost always the only female resident in any one center.
Trying to change an entire industry, one neurosurgeon at a time. We sat down with 5 female brain surgeons at St. Michael's Hospital, what they hope for the future for their male-dominated field. We have that conversation coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
It is no secret there are more men in the medical field than women. One Toronto hospital is making big strides to change that. St. Michael's has 7 female neurosurgeons in training. Our Ali Chiasson introduces us to 5 of them.
Neurosurgery requires long hours. Doctors often perform multiple operations a day. Stressors include having someone's life, or at minimum, a patient's cognition in their hands.
You're really holding people's function. You're sometimes maybe even holding their personalities. We don't know because neuroscience is such a blooming field. And with that reason, I kind of chose neurosurgery.
I graduated med school in 2009, so a decade ago now. The demographics of the residency from when I started residency to when I came back from research now has changed completely. I was almost always the only female resident in any one center. So to come back now and see so many other women has been really exciting and empowering and enjoyable.
I sat down with 5 neurosurgeons in training, all of them women, about the push to inspire more to embark on a career in the male-dominated specialty.
And I remember when I was a medical student interviewing at a different institution, and how there was a male resident who said, "Oh, I developed such a great relationship with my mentor. We were able to go out for beers, go to hockey games." And I've always wondered, am I going to have that opportunity? Will that be strange in today's context? And
of the 333 neurosurgeons practicing in Canada, only 11% are female, but it's more than we've ever had. And it's trending upward, as evidenced by these women in various stages of their 6-year residency at St. Michael's Hospital.
Did you always know what you wanted to do? I think I've always deep down inside knew, and I think they're family-wise, everyone's like, why don't you go into something else? Like, why are you doing this? And then I desperately tried every other specialty, but for me, I absolutely love what I'm doing right now. How does one establish a work-life balance in this field? I feel like it's...
You don't. Yeah, I'm not sure that it's really something that's attainable, but I think it's not, maybe just conceptualizing it not as a balance, but as an integration of your work in your life.
How many kids do you have? Do you have just the one? Oh my gosh.
It's nice to have people like Teresa who have 3 kids that I can talk to and bounce ideas off of.
All could be worse.
Yeah. For sure, but at the same time, I do think it's challenging to leave your family and leave your kids in the morning, and also leave your kids overnight when you're on call. But I think on the other side of that, it's actually pretty rewarding when you're doing something for yourself and you're doing something that you really enjoy as well.
I think also as neurosurgeons, we're constantly trying to prioritize different patients, different cases. So even from a professional perspective, we learn to prioritize very well.
The experts say neurosurgery and our understanding of the brain in general is in its infancy. All the more reason to have a diverse range of smart minds with different perspectives and experiences participating in the study of it.
There are specific challenges to women, but there are a lot of other females now in neurosurgery who are really rooting for you.
Leaders in healthcare across the country are being encouraged to add more diversity to operating rooms, saying the talent has always been there, but hospitals haven't been making enough space. For more, you can check out Ali's article on cbc.ca/Toronto.
A Toronto police veteran is retiring from the force after 30 years of service. I'll sit down with Detective Sergeant Stacey Gallant and look back on the highlights of his career.
A new appeal tonight from Toronto police hoping to solve a decades-old murder.
People talk, and people can't hold it in forever and say nothing ever in their life about what they've done.
Donna Uglieve was found dead in a parking lot near Jarvis and Carlton back in March 1998. She'd been strangled to death. The 24-year-old lived in British Columbia. She was a sex trade worker and had only been in Toronto for just 5 weeks before she was killed. Police say she was also 4 months pregnant. They do have a DNA profile of the murder suspect. Now, 21 years later, police are hoping someone will come forward and put a name to that profile. The Toronto Police Detective Sergeant you just heard from has been solving crimes in the city for decades. But this week, Stacey Gallant is calling it a career. Lisa Shing sat down with him today about the cases that have had the biggest impact on him.
I love what I do, and I always will.
Detective Sergeant Stacey Gallant takes stock of his policing career spanning 3 decades.
I was always looking for ways to make it better for the investigator, easier for the investigator to do what they need to do.
The Toronto police veteran pushed to have police evidence for court cases digitized and helped develop the forensic video analysis unit. And 2 years ago, after the disappearances of 8 men from the Gay Village and subsequent Bruce McArthur investigation, Gallant helped create the Missing Persons Unit. Gallant started his career as a cadet when he was 20. He delivered court summons and cleared rush hour routes and gave out parking tickets before heading to 55 Division as a constable. And eventually, he headed up one of the first teams in the Guns and Gangs Task Force. The later part of his career was spent in the Homicide Division.
The stress level and the tiredness of it, having been in homicide for 15 years, you don't see nice things. You see the worst of everything.
Gallant says he'll never forget the 2005 murder of Rose McCarty by her husband.
It was my first case, and it was a horrible case the way she was left.
The death of Christopher Skinner in 2009 also left an impression. The 27-year-old was beaten and run over in Toronto's entertainment district after a night out.
That one stood out because that's not the Toronto that we all want to know, where somebody can be out just partying and having a good time in the city and end up dead on the street like that.
Now, after hundreds of cases, Gallant is looking for a change.
I always wanted to experience something else as well outside of policing for my own personal satisfaction, to see what it is like in the corporate world and see what else is out there.
While he says he'll miss police work, he's looking forward to a new challenge with private security company Garda World in the new year. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
To Australia now, where fires fanned by high winds are on the move in the southeastern state of Victoria. Thousands of locals and visitors have been told to get out before roads are closed.
We've had a challenging day in Victoria, and what we've seen up until today is more than 70 new fires in the state.
Extreme temperatures have stoked one of the country's worst ever fire seasons. 8 people have been killed, including today a volunteer firefighter. The threat of lightning is also fueling new alerts. Nick is back now with a look at our local forecast. Not nearly as extreme here, but we've been seeing like all sorts of changes in the last few hours.
Yeah, it's been an up and down, a roller coaster ride, if you will. Even not just the last few hours, but over the last few days, temperatures up and down. We hit double digits earlier in the week. We're hitting double, or I should say last week rather. We hit double digits today as well, 10 degrees. And now we're coming down in our temperature trend, but it will go up again toward the end of the week. So let's get right into it. Right now we're sitting at 5 degrees across the GTA, some cooler weather down in southwestern Ontario. That cooler weather is making its way into the city. At this point, a few showers just off to the east, well off to the east of us, but you see in behind it there, still the risk of a few showers, spotty showers, or some wet flurries as we head through the evening hours tonight. It's all part of a broader system, and this is what brought the warm weather with it, but as it moves across, we're actually dragging in colder air and also some snowfall as well. And often some of the largest amounts of snowfall fall on the backside of these storm systems. So here's what we can expect. Moving into tonight, this is going to sweep across, and that's going to bring with it some light snowfall or flurries across the GTA. Now, through the late overnight period, early morning hours, we're expecting to see one band that's going to move through. It's kind of shifting, so this will determine whether some areas get an extra few centimeters of snow by tomorrow. Then as it moves across, widespread snowfall in the forecast throughout the day tomorrow, but light snowfall. And then as we head toward New Year's, temperatures down to about -2 and a few flurries in the forecast, and it sort of starts to taper off as we head through New Year's Day. All told, we're looking at around about 3 to 5 centimeters of snow across the GTA, but some areas actually might see a little bit more than that. Here's a look at your long-range forecast, then 1 degree as we move through the next couple of days for New Year's Eve and New Year's, and then look at that on Friday, rain and 7.
Wow,
Up
what a
and down.
turn. Yeah.
I know.
Thanks, Nick.
You bet.
When you think about algae, you probably think of that smelly gunk that litters some lake shores. Well, the GTA company in this next story says it actually could be a secret weapon in the fight against climate change. We hit the road to see how it works. Welcome to St. Mary's. It's got all the charm of a southern Ontario town. It's also home to this sprawling cement plant, part of the community for more than 100 years. Now, tucked away in a far-off corner, there's something new.
Yes, I'm the guy who had the crazy idea that we can grow algae off of the industrial emissions and help to save the world.
I think when most people think of algae, they think of, the gunk that you might see along the beach.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's different kinds of algae. We grow microalgae, and algae in and of itself...
It all starts with these stacks, pumping out carbon dioxide emissions. A series of pipes captures the CO2 and brings it here.
What we're doing with this is we're drawing down the stack gas emissions and using these blower motors to also draw in atmospheric air and mix with the gas, so that way we can inject it into the bottom of the bioreactors for the algae to use the carbon emissions as a food source.
That's right. All that CO2 gets gobbled up by algae. Inside this giant 22,000-liter bioreactor, the final product is this, a thick algae paste, 20 kilograms churned out every day.
All of this comes out of that and more. So there's products like spirulina, we just have little samples of it here. That's the world's most perfect protein. So the potential is enormous. If we put this technology on just 10% of the industrial emitters in North America, we are a long way to meeting the goals for carbon dioxide reduction.
It's kind of like using a mop to clean up the water on the floor while the tap is still running.
One environmental critic says this kind of carbon capture technology is costly and its use limited.
No, this isn't a silver bullet solution, and you're right, there is no one silver bullet solution. The only silver bullet solution really is that we have to stop burning fossil fuels.
But the Pontec team believes they can make a big difference.
We need cement. We use cement to build hydroelectric dams, which are, good in renewable energy. Algae and related technologies actually provide a closure, allows us to close the carbon loop and provide a more sustainable economy for everyone.
So Pontec has 2 other projects underway, one with Markham District Energy, the other with the Stelco steel plant in Hamilton.
With heat waves in the summer, with climate change, with extreme colds in the winter, with construction on the roads, with the amount of vehicles that are on the road, the animal safety we have a serious question on the animal safety.
Starting in 2020, you'll no longer be able to ride a horse and buggy in Montreal. Although some advocates are cheering, others say it's heartbreaking. We'll take you there coming up. After more than 40 years on the streets of Toronto, the TTC has retired the last of its old streetcars. Yesterday was the final day to ride on one of the last two remaining cabs. And to mark the occasion, customers got a free ride.
Well, we drove 2 hours. We felt that it was a last opportunity to come and see it. And I suppose we were always fascinated, especially with the Swiss-built ones.
It's like a blast from the past. It's really nice.
The gong, like the bell, is like that's like one of the most iconic sounds of Toronto.
I'm a transit fan.
I'm obsessed with trains. Yeah. They're just so romantic, kind of. Riding them in the rain especially is so nice. You can sit there and dream.
They first rolled into the city on December 29th, 1977, exactly 42 years ago yesterday. In total, the city purchased 196 of them. Brenda Michaud has been operating them for 23 years.
Yeah, apparently they're going to retire the old Rattler. That would be me. My co-workers are calling me the old Rattler. It's kind of bittersweet. The new cars, I get heat and air. These cars, I get individual hands-on with the passengers, so it's twofold.
As of today, all old streetcars have now been replaced by the more accessible lower streetcars by Bombardier. They're expected to last the next 30 years. As for the old ones, a few will be added to collections of transit museums across North America. In the new year, a once familiar sight in Old Montreal will be no more. The city is banning horse-drawn carriages effective January 1st. As Alison Northcott explains, that has owners and drivers making some tough decisions this holiday season.
It wasn't easy for Denis Murray to say goodbye to his horse, Cici. After 17 years working together in Old Montreal, Murray and his horse recently retired as the city imposes a new ban on horse-drawn carriages.
On était connectés ensemble, là. C'était vraiment comme mon bébé.
We were connected, he says. She's like my baby. That's why it was such a hard decision for him to give her up for adoption. After years of debate around caleches, pressure from animal rights groups, and videos of incidents like this, where a caleche collided with a car, the city is shutting the industry down.
With heat waves in the summer, with climate change, with extreme colds in the winter, with construction on the roads, with the amount of vehicles that are on the road, the animal safety we have a serious question on the animal safety.
Some say it will change the feel and the fabric of Old Montreal.
It's magical, it's romantic, there's music playing, it's cold out here, and it's a great way for somebody to possibly propose. But again, if the animal's healthy, I think they should be out and be free.
As a tourist, is it something that you'll miss?
I don't usually partake in it because I don't like that how they're using the horses for that.
The city is offering caleche owners $1,000 compensation to give their horses up through organizations like the SPCA. But some say that won't make up for the loss of their livelihoods and are challenging the ban in court. Still, the SPCA hopes owners will take up the city's offer.
We didn't want these horses to end up at the slaughterhouse. So we do hope that the horse owners will make the right decision for these horses and give them the retirement they deserve rather than sell them off to someone else who will use them in a similar type of environment.
Murray says he's against the ban and insists the Montreal horses are treated well. As for Cici, he says with her new family in the country, she's getting the retirement he promised her. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
I put the needle down and it was as though my mom was in the room because I was listening to the same exact record that she had listened to as a little girl.
It's like show and tell, but with your favorite tune. People coming together and sharing what certain songs mean to them. We'll have that story coming up right after the break. Beer, vinyl, and memories. All three come together at Henderson Brewing once a month. People bring a record, play it for the crowd, and then share what it means to them. We sent our Angelina King to have a listen.
This event allows you to just go back in time but be in the present and bridge all these bridges. And I just
Elizabeth Hellreich is a regular at Vinyl Show and Tell. She says listening to music she grew up with gives her a feeling of hope.
I get that feeling every time I play this record. And when I look at it, I don't even know the year it was made. But I know that the times were really pure and really fun.
Tonight, she's telling the story of buying her second record when she was a teen.
Down the street was this boy named Rob. And the second time I went over there, he said, "Hey, you want to buy some of my records? And maybe a piece of hash." And
The song, Teach Your Children. She shares her memories with the crowd, but has a particular audience in mind.
What do you feel when you hear this record?
What do I feel? I feel my daughter over there. She's one of two. The other one comes often too. And that there's the only way they'll know me. They won't know me. You can talk your head off, but when you play songs and they're older, they understand the song, you know, and maybe they'll know me. And that's important, I think.
At the very first Vinyl Show and Tell 4 years ago, owner Steve Hamill told his story. He was adopted and never met his late mother, but he did meet her best friend, who gave him a Beatles record. Written on it, his mother's name and phone number.
And I put the needle down, and it was as though my mom was in the room because I was listening to the same exact record that she had listened to as a little girl. And it was an incredible moment for me. So
he says those deeply personal stories connect strangers. Conversations are started and friendships created.
The truth is that so many of our stories are similar.
Stories from the past, a first kiss, a wild party, and stories of love.
It was the right song right at the right time.
Tim Maxfield brought the record he and his wife fell in love to. They got married at the brewery 2 years ago and danced to the acoustic version of the song by rock band Sleeping with Sirens.
It talks about real life situations, you know what I mean? Like, it's never going to be perfect, but I'll be there for the whole thing. And it just speaks to everything I wanted to say to her.
For some, it's easier to share with the help of music. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
It's almost the new year, a good time to look back at the year that was. Yelena Adzik is here to take us through everything entertainment. Yes. Let's start with music. Who dominated?
Okay, so Shannon, I know you think I'm going to talk about the song Old Town Road. I'm not going to play it. I know you've heard enough for 2019, but it really was the longest running top Billboard song. But the truth of the matter is when it comes to streaming and Spotify, the way that they calculate things, it was kind of considered a remix. So it doesn't make it into the top official standing. Post Malone does. So Post Malone was just a huge winner this year. Over 6.5 billion Spotify streams across the globe. And so many songs on his album, Hollywood's Bleeding, passed 100 million streams, including Circles. The Sunflower was another big track. So yeah, Post Malone officially getting the top spot for the most streamed. But on the Canadian end of things, I'm going to give you a look at a guy who you probably know very well. First of all, we're going to talk about Shawn Mendes because he got a tip of the hat for 2019 for Top Songs of the Year. You know the catchy one that he's got going with Camila Cabello, and that's Señorita. But then also this guy, Drake. Drake is officially Spotify's most streamed artist of the decade. So yeah, he definitely had an incredible 10 years behind him, and so he did really well. And just trailing a tiny little bit behind him, we've also got Ariana Grande. She was named the most streamed female artist of the decade. So yeah, Drake did very well, for sure.
Toronto representing, of course. Gotta love that. So we're going to talk about the big screen, small screen, movie and televisions.
Okay, so I gotta mention this, I gotta get it out of the way. Okay. Blockbusters like, obviously Avengers Endgame, they did more than $2 billion at the box office, so fine. Also have to mention something like Game of Thrones because it ended, and it kind of ended an era of a certain way we watch TV altogether. But I think the real story for 2019 goes to the small screen that is, and specifically to documentaries because they really changed the way that we perceive things. You think of something like Finding Neverland with Michael Jackson. Jackson, but then you also think about the documentary about R. Kelly. And this one was something that actually resulted in legal cases. This is something that is all part of, extension of the Me Too movement, but there was concrete legal action for sexual misconduct on the part of R. Kelly, burgeoning new evidence against the singer, and it continues because, Shannon, part 2 will air in January of 2020 of the doc Surviving R. Kelly. So that really made a huge impact.
Yeah, it's not over yet either with that story. So we got to move on to pop culture. When you think of the mainstream big movement of the year,
there is just no way we're going to get away from this conversation without showing this face, Greta Thunberg, the young 16-year-old climate activist. I mean, she just made so many people stop in their tracks with this powerful speech. Take a listen.
How dare you continue to look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight.
It really was an incredible year when you think of it, because more than 20,000 different books written about the environment, not just on the young end. We also have veteran actress Jane Fonda arrested several times because of her belief in what we should be doing for the environment. So that was just huge for this year in terms of popular culture.
Yeah, it feels like a turning point kind of moment.
We can hope.
We can hope.
Yes.
And what about the art world?
Art world, really quickly, just wanted to mention the fact that sponsorships being canceled for major institutions because of big pharma. That was something. The Louvre, for example, they took away the Sackler name because one artist, Nan Golden, said that the family behind this was benefiting from the business of addictive painkillers. We hadn't seen that before 2019. Lots of other big institutions started to follow suit. Now, the Louvre, they said that they took the name down because the contract period ended, quote, but we all know that this was a really big deal for sure.
We've gone through so much, but now you're going to tell us about the major cultural headline of the year.
I think it's the major cultural image of the year, Notre Dame Cathedral. When you saw that spire burning, so many of us around the world were just in shock because it felt like such a, a historic, it really was, a monument that's been there forever. And in fact, what they ended up doing this recent Christmas, it was the first time since the French Revolution Christmas Mass could not be held inside the cathedral. Instead, Mass was held at a church near the Louvre. And, there's no firm conclusion on what happened there, but they said the fire was not set intentionally, that is. French President Emmanuel Macron, he said he hopes the cathedral will open for the first time for the Olympics Paris is hosting in 2024. But a lot of people are saying that in the building world are saying, do not hold your breath. It really doesn't seem likely.
Right. It's incredible to take a look back, but there is so much to sort of look ahead to.
There really is, in 2020, I think that there is at least a bit of a sense of optimism on the part of some people because we are seeing some progress happen. No matter how skeptical you are, there has been some progress. You think of something like Hallmark, for example. They put out the TV channel. They put out a kiss with two women at their wedding, and then that was taken down from a conservative group. And then Ellen DeGeneres and a bunch of people said, that's ridiculous. You should just show that. And within one day, it was reinstated. And it kind of shows that people's voices are starting to be heard. And so I think there's a lot to look forward to in 2020. And there's also some good things to look forward to in 2020 that are baking right now. Can you just tell us when you're due?
February. So we'll see. It's coming soon.
This is baby number 2. This is so exciting. I'm very happy for you. Happy New Year.
Thanks so much, Yelena.
We'll see you soon.
It's been a mild few weeks, so what will tomorrow, the last day of 2019, look like? We'll check in with Nick one last time with a look at your weather. Stay with us. We'll be right back. They were down a few of their top players, but Canada managed to pull out a win against Germany at the World Juniors.
The Kaiser plays it off the sideboards and an empty net for Canada. Foodie in with Delandria. Kai Delandria scores. It'll be a shorthanded empty net goal for Canada and a 4-1 lead.
The resounding win comes after an embarrassing loss to Russia on Saturday. Canada shut out 6-0. That is our country's most lopsided defeat in the tournament's 44-year history. The team was, though, without 2/3 of their top line. CHL Player of the Year Alexis Lafreniere was sidelined with a knee injury. Canada now sits with 2 wins and a loss through 3 games at the under-20 event. They can guarantee a top spot in Group B by beating the Czech Republic in their New Year's Eve game tomorrow. So you may be staying in to watch that, but if you're heading out, we need to know. How do we prepare?
Well, bundle up a little bit, although I'm sure we've both been out on New Year's that's been a lot colder than this.
Yeah, true.
You know, I remember Nathan Phillips Square, you go out there, it's like minus 10 degrees and the wind chill. It's not going to be that bad, all right? But you still want to get the coat out and maybe a couple of extra layers. -1 tonight, 1 degree tomorrow. We are expecting snow. That's going to taper off by New Year's Eve. And then tomorrow night, temperatures will be about -1, -2 with the wind chills still about -9. So dress accordingly if you're heading out.
Yeah, the question I know a lot of ladies ask, do I do sleeves? Do I do heels? Do I have to wear a jacket?
I can't answer that, but I just give the weather.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that's our show for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Mike Wise has got you covered tonight at 11, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Hope you have a great night.